Good evening, good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Frontline Club. My name is Vaughan Smith. I'd like to welcome you to the 2019 Frontline Club Award ceremony, which is being live streamed tonight on our YouTube channel. I know it's pretty good, as is the orange juice. It gives me very great pleasure to introduce our host for tonight, the very wonderful Elizabeth Palmer of CBS News.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. How wonderful to see such a packed house. Thank you very much, Vaughan. I'm delighted to be here and honored to be presenting these very important awards, the Frontline Club Awards, which recognize integrity, courage, and independence of spirit in journalism. These qualities really define every one of the finalists that we will introduce to you tonight. Some of them are well-known veterans of big organizations. Some are independents at the start of their careers, but all of them have produced work of exceptional ambition and impact. We will celebrate them and their work in print, television, and photojournalism, 3 categories, very shortly. But first, it's my great honor to welcome tonight's keynote speaker. In 2011, Waad Al-Kateab was an economics student in the northern Syrian city of Aleppo. Suddenly, the Syrian uprising against Bashar al-Assad broke out all around her. At first, she joined in the demonstrations, as so many young people did, and it took courage and conviction. But then, with added foresight, she picked up a camera and she started to film. She set out to document exactly what was going on. For 5 years, as the violence got steadily worse, Waad filmed life in this increasingly savage and, of course, very dangerous conflict. Most famously for Channel 4 News, I'm sure a lot of you saw those searing reports that she sent, always filing from a female perspective, which was different and electrifying. Also the perspective of an activist and of a mother. Her daughter, Sama, was born as the fighting raged all around. In an act of astonishing bravery in 2016, Waad decided to stay inside eastern Aleppo. At that stage, it was under siege. It was being shattered and pummeled by airstrikes and by artillery from the ground by both Russian and Syrian forces. When she finally escaped, she brought out with her, she tells me, more than 500 hours of gritty, gripping footage, which she has distilled into an award-winning documentary. It was released this summer. It's called For Sama, dedicated to that little girl who was born during the uprising. And it's already won more than 30 international awards. It receives its debut broadcast on Channel 4 this very Saturday, and I hope that you'll watch it. To give you an enticing little sample, have a look at the screen.
بحلب مدينتي لسه عم صور. هذا الشيء اللي عم بيخلي معنى لوجودي. ما حدا منا كان عنده أي فكرة كيف رح تتغير حياتنا للأبد. حمزة أنا حامل. سما 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 عملت هالفيلم مشانك. بدي إياك تفهم شو اللي كنا عم نقاتل مشانه.
بحبك كثير أكثر من
أصلا في ضرب كثير اليوم. سما أنا بعرف إنك عم تفهمي شو عم بصير. بقدر شوف هالشي بعيونك. ما عم تبكي مثل أي طفل عادي. هذا الشيء اللي عم يحرق لي قلبي. سما رح تسامحيني؟
I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Waad Al-Kateab.
Hello, everyone. Obviously, my name is Waad Al-Kateab. I wrote this here, but I need to say it again. So, when I started filming, I was 20 years old, and I've never went to study film. I've just with the revolution, and being a protester at Alipo University gives me some of the sense that I need to film. The first time I picked up my phone to film, it was at the protest at Alipo University, when the Syrian revolution started, and the peaceful demonstration were crushed by a brutal violence by Assad regime first, and the security forces on the ground, they were trying to crush these protesters, and also the state media, they were denying everything was happening. So from that, we felt that this is so important to save and record this period of Syria and of Syrian life, and try to think more about how we can really save our story. During the years, as the conflict became worst, as we've never could imagine, we were ready to lose our life for any single scene you could capture. For us, journalism wasn't a business, not for money and not for being famous. As more other great journalists around the world who were in contact with us, and they were working abroad just to shed the light of the Syrian story. And also with the very brave journalists who they risked their life and just to get illegally into Syria and film what was happening there. Unfortunately, some of these journalists didn't make it out, and they give us a great example of why journalism and what the point of journalism. Some of these names, maybe you will know them, and I will not go through the whole list, but some of the names which stuck in all the minds of all of us. People like Tamer Awam, Basil Shhada, Marie Colvin, and James Foley, and many, many others. But we, the citizen journalists, who they called us, or we called ourselves, who few of us who worked with international channels and media or media agency who you could recognize their names, while others you never meet or you will never hear about them. The numbers of these citizen journalists who lost their life while they were working in the media is not clear yet, even for me. And I really will not name any one of them, because I went yesterday, I looked through one of the lists which is public on Google, and I barely recognized like some of them. So it's really I feel shame of that, because this is my people and this is the people who I could have been one of them, and I don't want, if I've been killed, for my name to be like forgotten. With the time, some of us give up, and the others still working until today in Idlib or inside Syria in different places. And very few of us, like me, who got the chance and the opportunity to be like standing here tonight speaking with you about my experience. During the years, I was sure that I would be dead. And I knew that I couldn't protect my life, nor my daughter, and nor my husband. But I was sure that if I filmed everything, every day, every like people who I know, this story will be saved. To the day I'm standing here, I can't really tell you all the challenging that I had. Like one camera, and sometimes like borrow camera from a friend. One lens, one battery, no tripod, no lighting at all. And you can recognize that if you've seen the film. And lack of electricity, lack of hard drives, and so bad internet. But at the same time, we tried really to do our best in everything. There was like one drone in whole Aleppo, so we were sharing between all of us. There was one 360 cameras, which I had a chance for 2 days to play with it. I didn't know how to use it, but it's like done. And we were part of the outside resources. And sometimes we were the only resources for the channels and the media agency outside to get some news. But really, we worked so hard to improve our skills and our experience. People were disrespect me sometimes, and in the best way, they could take my work unseriously. Sometimes because I'm a woman, and sometimes because I'm a citizen journalist, and sometimes like both together. So imagine how nice is it. I did reports for local channels and for some other journalists. I did many reports for the news, and I was like filming these reports, editing, and put my voice over all that, and then send for them like the report full ready just to publish. And most of these reports were like cutting off before I said my name, like, which is, I was so proud of doing this, like Waad Al-Kateab Aleppo. But it didn't work, because really some of these channels doesn't want us to be who they have it, and could be make sense for some people, but it's not make sense for people like us who could have been killed while they filming this material. And after very bad experience one day, I really wanted to break the camera, and I decided like I will not never film again. And 2 hours later, with some words of my husband Hamza, and some feeling that I really feel that I addicted to filming, I felt like, okay, well, let's try, let's continue and see what will happen. But this like memory, I always remember like, what if I did that day? What if I really give up and I said, okay, I will not do that again, I want to do something totally different. I will not be here today standing telling you about one of like now the most famous documentary in this year. I felt that every time I'm doing something good, I remember that day when I felt like I really didn't want to do this anymore. But unfortunately, other people, they had that feeling, and they did, and they give up about that. Now, after working like with a very respectful channels, it's called for Channel 4 News, and maybe most of you familiar with that. And the great job that we work together for inside Aleppo, and then they support me a lot to do for Sama, and they support me also and give me the opportunity to be part of that story and part of the process itself, to go to the edit suite and be sitting with the people and be credited as director. Maybe like some of you or all of you will say like, of course Channel 4 News should do this. But it's not the case at all in my situation. I have so many stories for citizen journalists who their material been taken away from them. They have no credit, they have no money, they have no even like sense that this is our film. And unfortunately, this is like true happening every day with people who I know. Yeah, sorry, where are you, Matt? I'm always getting a little bit angry when I remember these stories. Because out of this, really, I feel like maybe I was these people sitting now in some place, I don't know, and thinking like, oh, this is my material, and I don't know who's this director. So just, and 3 days ago or 4 days ago, there was a screening for the film here in Frontline Club. And a woman come to me after the film and said, like, I'm so proud of you, I'm so happy what you've done, but same time, I'm so sad that no one in my country who also like went through a brutal war filmed something like this. And I really like smiled like this, and I've told her, like, you don't know. Maybe there's many people who filmed a lot of things. Maybe there's material much better than what I've done, but they don't got that chance to be presenting them their film and be part of that. So this is our turn now. Our turn, everyone who can do any support for these people, to take their hands and help them to do stories by themselves with a great support from all of you. I just like the last thing I want to say, please look for these people and try to find them, trying to whatever, like it could be something so small, maybe just emotional, maybe just like some words that every one of us can do really great things if we got the great opportunity and the great support. And unfortunately, in my situation, I'm the exceptional, I'm not the rule. And that's what I really don't want to see anymore. I hope that every one of you will find someone to help, and next year, one of these people will be standing here instead of me and presenting their story. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Waad. Before you run away, Waad, what time is your film? On Channel 4 on Saturday, 9 o'clock. Everybody, tune in. Thank you very much. And now to the evening's first award, the 2019 Frontline Club Award, and we're going to begin with the broadcast category. The nominees are Daniel Adamson, Aliom Leroy, Ben Strick, and Tom Flannery for their BBC Africa investigation of Anatomy of a Killing. In July 2018, a horrifying video began to do the rounds on social media, and it showed 2 women and 2 young children being led away at gunpoint by a group of Cameroonian soldiers. The captives were blindfolded. You see them forced to the ground and then shot 22 times. Cameroon's government dismissed the video as fake news, of course, at first. But through painstaking analysis of the footage, this team of open source investigators proved exactly where the killing happened, when it happened, and who did it. Ultimately, that forced the government to arrest the soldiers responsible. We're going to see a little bit of it now.
In August this year, an Amnesty International investigator spoke with residents of Zelafet who had been displaced by the fighting to a nearby town. Among them was a man who said that he saw these women and children being brought into the base by Cameroonian soldiers. A short while after they were led away, he said he heard gunfire. In August, there was a sudden change in the government's position. After weeks of denying that these killings took place in Cameroon, Bakari announced that 7 members of the Cameroonian military had been arrested and were under investigation. Our analysis has identified 3 men who actually pulled the trigger. One of them is this man, introduced at the start of the film as Chocho. We found a Facebook profile that links the nickname Chocho to a soldier called Syriac Vitiala. A Syriac Vitiala is among the detainees named by the government. The BBC has also spoken with a former Cameroonian soldier who confirmed that this is Chocho Syriac Vitiala. At the end of the film, we see him again, blindfolding the little girl he's about to kill. A few seconds later, he draws his weapon and opens fire.
category this evening are Axel Gård Hummelhö and Ali Fagan for their investigation for Swedish public television SVT. It's called Deceptive Diplomacy. It probes the executions in March of United Nations experts Zaida Catalan and Michael Sharp in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, a UN report had blamed the murders on a rebel group fighting the Congolese army. But Hummelhö and Fagan's investigation revealed that the military had a role in the crime. And furthermore, that the UN had gone to great lengths to cover up the state's guilt. Let's have a little look.
Secretary General, här har jag det. Han skriver: Dear Mrs. Moresby, please rest assured that the United Nations remain deeply committed to ensuring that those responsible for the deaths of Zaida and Michael are brought to justice. Yours sincerely, Antonio Guterres.
But just as the UN began its investigation, important new information about the murder suddenly emerged from the Congo.
Vi fick ett samtal från FN där det framgick att man visste vilka mördarna var, att det fanns bevis. Det rörde sig om en avrättningsfilm på Zaida och Michael.
The video is 6 minutes long. It shows Zaida and Michael being led by a group of men. They're armed with rifles, machetes and knives. And they lead their victims towards a grove of trees. Then they're both shot to death.
Our final nominee in the broadcast category is Ollie Lambert for One Day in Gaza, which he made for BBC Two. On the 14th of May in 2018, as diplomats were gathering to mark the occasion of the U.S. Embassy's move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, less than 40 miles away, tens of thousands of Palestinian demonstrators were massing at the security fence that separates Gaza from Israel. By the end of the day, at least 60 Palestinians were dead or dying, and over 2,700 were injured. Drawing on 120 hours of footage from the scene and numerous interviews, not only with onlookers, but from leaders of Hamas and Islamic Jihad, as well as senior commanders in the IDF, Ollie's film pieces together the story of that day.
We are here in Jerusalem protected by the brave soldiers of the Army of Israel. Our brave soldiers are protecting the borders of Israel as we speak today. We salute them all of you. What a glorious day. Remember this moment. This is history.
الفعاليات كانت المنصة عبر مكبرات الصوت. سمعت بيحكوا انه تم نقل السفارة. حتى انا يعني شعرت بشيء يعني رجف في بطني. ولكن شيء رعش فيا ومش بس في يعني كانت هبة جماهيرية كبيرة. دخلوا لحظتها مرة واحدة تجاه الخط الزائل وتم إطلاق إطلاق نار عليهم مباشر، وكانت هناك إصابات بالعشرات في لحظة نقل السفارة.
Warmest congratulations to all the nominees. Now it's time to announce the winner of the 2019 Frontline Club Award for Broadcast. The winners are Daniel Adamson, Aliom Leroy, Ben Strick, and Tom Flannery. I believe that Daniel and Ben are here tonight to accept the award. Would you come up onto the stage?
Thank you all so much. We are quite surprised to win tonight at the Frontline Club, because as those of you who have seen it will know, we didn't go anywhere near the front line. And especially in the presence of Waad and Ollie and many other brave filmmakers who have actually exposed themselves to bombs and bullets. It's quite a surprise, but yeah, thank you for recognizing it. I'd like to say that it's Anatomy of Killing is one of more than 25 films that BBC Africa Eye has made in the last 18 months. And I'd like to thank the network of more than 150 journalists in more than 30 countries across the African continent who are working with us in often very difficult and dangerous circumstances to tell these stories. We couldn't do it without all of you guys, so thank you so much for that. I'd also like to acknowledge that there's a certain discomfort in receiving awards in the Frontline Club when the subject of the film is the murder of unknown and unnamed women and children in a remote part of the world. So we want to acknowledge that and hope that our work plays some role in bringing people to account. We'd also like to thank many people who collaborated with us on this investigation, including the couch analysts and people on Twitter who we never even met, Amnesty International and Bellingcat and everyone who contributed. Thanks to our fabulous and inspirational editor Mark, who's at the back of the room tonight, Mark Perkins, who many of you know.
Thanks, Mark.
And to Tom Flannery and Ayom, who were part of the core team that produced this, and to my wonderful colleague Ben, who is a genius investigator online. So thank you, Ben, and thanks everyone.
We're now going to move on to the Frontline Club Award for Print. Once again, we have 3 nominees, and the first ones are Ayo Awokoya and Tobias Jones for Are Your Tin Tomatoes Picked by Slave Labor? We all buy tin tomatoes, of course, because they're cheap and so useful. Ayo and Tobias's investigation for The Guardian reveals how for decades they've been produced on the backs of thousands of exploited migrants in the south of Italy. The film exposes this vast web of exploitation that underpins virtual slavery and also its devastating fallout. Judges called this piece a combination of vivid reporting, smart analysis, and superb writing, full of humanity for its subjects and with great investigative insights. It is, they said, the kind of reporting that can change minds and, crucially, policy. So let's have a hand. The second nominee in the print category is Anne Barnard for Inside Syria's Torture Prisons, How Bashar al-Assad Crushed Dissent. Anne's investigation for the New York Times exposes a secret industrial-scale network of torture sites used by the Syrian government to silence civilian protests. It is a method that's proved crucial to the victory that the government appears to have won now 8 years into the conflict. We don't know how many people have passed through the system of arbitrary arrest and imprisonment. We don't know how many have died. We don't know how many are still stuck in those dungeons. Human rights groups, though, estimate that there are between some several thousand up to 1 million. It boggles the mind. Our judges said that this was harrowing first-rate investigative reporting which keeps the human story foremost whilst conveying the scale of the ongoing Syrian repression. A hand for Anne Barnard. And our third nominee tonight, sorry, lost my place there for a moment. Our third nominee is Amanda Sperber for Inside the Secretive U.S. Air Campaign in Somalia, which was published in The Nation. Amanda spent 5 weeks in Somalia investigating the impact of U.S. airstrikes on civilians there. She identified strikes that had previously gone unreported by the U.S. Africa Command, known as AFRICOM, and she uncovered evidence to suggest that another U.S. agency may also be launching airstrikes in the region. She also cast very substantial doubt on AFRICOM's claims that they had never killed any civilians. Our judges said this was brave, intrepid reporting by a freelancer about a secretive subject in one of the world's most dangerous and unreported conflicts, an important story they hadn't seen reported anywhere else, and certainly not in such detail. So a hand for Amanda Sperber. The envelope, please. And the winner is Ayo Awakoya and Tobias Jones. Now, I think Ayo is here in the room tonight. Where are you? Come on up.
Hi, thank you so much. This is my first time doing something like this, so this truly is an honor. I really would like to thank Tobias, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but he was a great partner to do on a piece that was extremely difficult to do. I would also like to thank Claire, who's also here today, who diligently went through at least, 100 drafts of this piece. She was a great source of comfort for this. And I also want to thank, more importantly, the migrants who decided to tell their stories on their harrowing experiences from Libya across the Mediterranean into Italy, and where their dreams obviously weren't realized in the way they thought they would. It was extremely difficult for them to relay the ways in which they were crushed by the circumstances that they didn't see coming. So I want everyone to kind of acknowledge that this wasn't easy for anyone to do, and the significance of it is extremely important. And in the ways that we consume food, the impact it has, and the way it affects people that we don't even, who are incredibly invisible, it has an incredible weight to have. And I think we all need to be responsible in the way we buy food and what we do with that responsibility. So thank you very much. Thank you so much.
We move on now to the final category, and that is photojournalism, the 2019 Frontline Club Award for photojournalism. There are 3 nominees in the category. The first, New York-based photographer Sarah Blesner for her story, Patriot Games, about the military training camps for young people in Russia and in the United States. These camps aim to instill national pride and religion in the participants and also to steer them toward considering a career in the armed forces. Sarah's story, which she did for the online news outlet called Tortoise, is based on a different, larger project she also accomplished, which was called Beckon Us From Home. She visited 10 youth programs in the US and schools and military summer camps in Russia to study the rise of so-called patriotic education. Our judges commended her ability to draw parallels between those 2 countries and explore the ideas that are instilled in future generations. In other words, to really look hard at how young people respond to the demands of contemporary society and its insistence on these values. Let's have a hand. Our next nominee is Hyeri for Bombed by ISIS. An Afghan wrestling club is back. They can't stop us. In September 2018, the Islamic State bombed the Maiwand Wrestling Club in Kabul, Afghanistan, and the bombing killed dozens of people who happened to be inside at the time. But miraculously, the survivors and all those people who used the club and depended on it to some extent decided to rebuild it as a response to this terrible violence. And it is now bigger and better and busier than it ever was. Kiana's an Iranian-Canadian documentary photographer. She's based in Kabul, and she shot the story of the club's resurgence for the New York Times. Our judges said that Kiana's work in Afghanistan stood out. She explored the impact of the violence on civilians with thoughtfulness and sensitivity and showed real courage and commitment in taking on the story and its subject matter. Let's hear it for Keanu. Our final finalist is Lorenzo Tugnoli for Powerless, a photographer's journey into Yemen's shattering war. Lorenzo's an Italian, and he visited Yemen in June last year and then again in November and in December. He was on assignment for the Washington Post, and while there he documented the harrowing effects of this conflict, which is so remote and which has killed more than 50,000 people and left a staggering 17 million people without enough to eat. The judges said this was a startling visual narrative which conveyed the urgency of the situation in Yemen and the desperation and the sadness of those who are caught. They praised Lorenzo's sensitively executed images which blend beauty with composure and devastation. Lorenzo. And the winner is, for the Frontline 2019 Club Award for Photojournalism, Lorenzo Tugnoli. Unfortunately, Lorenzo can't be here with us tonight because he's hard at work on assignment. He's in Libya at the moment. But he did send us, with some difficulty, in front of some very dodgy curtains, a video message. Now.
Hello, everybody. I'm extremely honored to receive this award, especially because of the distinguished panel of judges that chose my work. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you tonight. I'm in Libya at the moment, and I'm recording this message from the city of Misurata. I just want to thank my editors, Olivier Loran and my Hyeri and Vaughan, for their help and their loyalty. The work that was awarded was done with 2 long trips that I did last year in Yemen. And of course I want to thank the journalist that worked with me, Bursary Award, with his incredible experience of the country, having a lot to navigate this difficult place. Yemen is a place that needs to be covered, that is difficult to cover, but I hope I will be back. I hope my colleagues will keep working on this and having this important story. Thank you very much.
I'm going to welcome to the stage now the Times journalist, Ben Macintyre. He's here to stage manage the next phase of this evening, which is the presentation of the 2019 Richard Beeston Bursary. Ben, over to you.
Hello, everybody. First of all, an apology. I am not Anthony Lloyd. That's just something I have to live with. Ant is in Syria doing the sort of work that the Richard Beeston bursaries are designed to celebrate. He sends his very best wishes. He's sorry he can't be here. First of all, I'll just tell you a very little bit about Rick Beeston and the bursaries themselves. Journalism was deep in Rick's blood. His father was the distinguished foreign correspondent Dick Beeston. His early years were spent in the Middle East, in Africa, the United States, and the Soviet Union as his father moved from one foreign posting to another. In 1984, having taken the National Council for the Training of Journalists course, Beeston became a foreign correspondent for the Daily Star in Beirut at the bloody height of the Lebanese Civil War, where his writing on the violence and complexity of that conflict so impressed the Daily Telegraph and the Times that they both offered him jobs. He very sensibly took the latter option and joined the Times as a foreign reporter in 1986 and never left. In 1988, covering the Iran-Iraq war, he witnessed the use of chemical weapons by Saddam Hussein against the Kurds in northern Iraq in the small town of Halabja. More than 5,000 people, mainly women and children, perished when the Iraqi aircraft dropped mustard and nerve gas. The episode led to some of Beeston's finest writing, at once objective, precise, and shot through with moral outrage. Beeston covered both the First and the Second Gulf Wars, where his critical and accurate reporting led to the denunciation by Saddam Hussein's official of him as a two-faced deceiver, of which he was extremely proud. In 1991, he became Jerusalem correspondent for the Times. 3 years later, moved on to Moscow, where he reported on the chaos of the post-Soviet years under Yeltsin. And he covered the uprising in Chechnya and was an eyewitness to the Russian air bombardment which flattened that city. In 1998, Beeston returned to London, first as foreign news editor, then from 2000 as diplomatic editor, and finally from 2008 as foreign editor, running a network of foreign correspondents around the globe. Known to his colleagues as Beast, he was always impeccably dressed, dedicated to his craft, endlessly encouraging of those he recruited to journalism, but demanding the highest standards. Richard Beeston was one of the finest foreign correspondents of his generation. Fearless, fair-minded, and unflappable. He covered wars from Syria to Chechnya, Iraq to the Balkans, and inspired numerous young reporters to take up the dangerous and rewarding task of reporting from the front line. He relished the life of a foreign correspondent and insisted that an eyewitness account filed under pressure from somewhere unpleasant and dangerous would always be worth any amount of copy recycled from other pens. At a time when journalism was under fire, he took immense pride in the craft of newspaper reporting without ever preaching or preening. When Rick died in 2013, Natasha and other friends set up the Richard Beeston bursaries. Now, there are two distinct Richard Beeston bursaries. The first is for a Lebanese, Palestinian, or Israeli journalist to come to Britain for 6 weeks on secondment to the Times. The other, or rather I'll do them in reverse order when we do the awards, the other is for an aspiring foreign correspondent from this country to travel abroad for, again, 6 weeks, researching and writing a long piece in association with the Times. So it's now my pleasure to announce the awards. The recipient of the 2019 Outward Bound, odd name, Outward Bound Richard Beeston Bursary goes to Fred Harter. Fred Harter is a freelance journalist based in London who writes for The Economist and for Tortoise. He started out as a journalist in July last year as an intern on the Britain section of The Economist, where he wrote about everything from knife crime to Sharia banking and the ripples of Brexit in the Caribbean. Before that, he worked as a researcher at the International Crisis Group in Brussels and Nairobi, focusing on militant Islamism in East Africa. Fred has degrees from King's College London and Queen Mary University of London. As the recipient of the Richard Beeston Bursary, Fred will travel to Ethiopia for the spring elections of 2020 to see how democracy is faring in Africa's second most populous state in the face of sectarian violence, economic hardship, and the threat of Islamic extremism. Now, sadly, Fred can't be with us here tonight. He is, I think, in Nairobi, if I'm not mistaken. But he has sent some words, and he says, "Thanks so much. I'm beyond excited to have been selected and can't wait to get started. Ethiopia is a story I've wanted to get stuck into for some time now, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to do so at this stage of my career. It is going to be," he says, "a big learning curve." Lovely. So that's Fred. Now the second award for the inbound candidate. Let me get my pieces of paper here. Oh, I've lost them all now. Hang on. I'll have to make it up. Right, that's a good idea. The recipient of the 2019 incoming Richard Beeston Bursary goes to Mohammed Musa. Mohammed is a 26-year-old Palestinian journalist living and working in Gaza. In 2015, he graduated with a BA in English Literature from Al-Azhar University of Gaza. His career in journalism started in 2014 during the Gaza war, when he began to report for numerous local and international websites. Working in journalism under tough conditions and with the urgency of daily attacks improved the clarity of his writing and allowed Mohammed to find his own voice as well as giving voice to others. He strongly believes in the power of storytelling, the power of a story to inspire and challenge, to teach and to change. He is also a poet and the founder of the first spoken word community in Gaza, the Gaza Poets Society. As the recipient of the 2019 incoming Richard Beeston Bursary, Mohammed, who has never left the confines of Gaza before, will spend 6 weeks in London working on the Times foreign desk, editing and reporting, and experiencing the challenges of publishing a physical paper daily while remaining part of the 24-hour news cycle. Unfortunately, Mohammed is currently in Gaza and is also unable to make it to London for the awards ceremony. But again, we have some words from him. "Thank you all. The moment I received the call from Natasha, 'Hi Mohammed, you won the prize,' I jumped for joy. Achieving this honourable prize, named after a legendary journalist. As an aspiring journalist from Gaza, I'm really grateful for this. Unfortunately, I can't attend the ceremony, but I am watching you live via Natasha's WhatsApp. I can't wait to meet you all. Thanks again to everybody who made this happen." So finally, all I have to say is thank you again to the Frontline Club for once again allowing us to tag along. Rick was a founder member of this club and he would have been delighted that this was taking place here. Thank you very much.
Now to our final award this evening, the Frontline Club Memorial Tribute Award. And I'm going to hand over to Vaughan to tell you more about it and to announce the winner.
The Frontline Club Memorial Tribute Award is given by our judges in recognition of an outstanding body of work or achievement. Like all of our awards, it honors journalistic integrity, courage, and the independence of spirit. This year, the award goes to Jamal Khashoggi. It is little more than a year ago that Saudi freelance journalist and dissident Jamal Khashoggi entered his nation's consulate in Istanbul. He was there to secure a document for his approaching marriage, but instead he was brutally murdered. Jamal Khashoggi was a journalist, author, columnist for the Washington Post and general manager and editor-in-chief of Al Arab news channel. He also served as editor for the Saudi newspaper Al Watan. From 1991 to 1999, he was a foreign correspondent. That's good. Glad you can hear me. Covering stories in countries including Afghanistan, Algeria, Kuwait, Sudan, and the Middle East. His columns for the Post often took aim at his country's leadership. The judges were unanimous in their decision to award this year's memorial tribute to this brilliant, brave, and outspoken journalist. Keeping his name and terrible murder in the public eye supports the safety and the integrity of us all, and of course our journalist colleagues everywhere. Tonight, to collect the award, is Jamal's friend, the human rights defender Yahya Assiri.
Thank you very much for Frontline Club, and thank you for recognizing the work from Jamal Khashoggi, rahimahullah. Jamal, he was trying until the last minute to be nice and to be, I can say, calm with the regime. Also, when he was criticizing the regime, and the messages I was receiving from Jamal all the time, he was advising me, Yahya, try to be more nicer with the regime. Try to be smoother. Don't be aggressive with the regime. When you criticize the regime, try to be more smoother. And he was trying like this. So why they killed Jamal Khashoggi while he was trying to criticize the regime, but nicely. They killed Jamal Khashoggi and the murder because they want to silence everyone criticizing the regime. And if they feel they are safe with this murder, they will continue to do crimes and violations. People before the murder for Jamal Khashoggi, they already suffered from the dictator regime in Saudi Arabia, but they success already to do huge PR for themselves. But after the murder for Jamal Khashoggi, they couldn't success again. And by having the highlights for the work for Jamal Khashoggi and for this crime, like this prize, or like the coverage from media and from a lot of journalists like you, that will not allow the regime to go away with this crime, and that will not allow them to do it again. So we can't brought the life for Jamal again, but we are trying to bring the justice for him, and we are trying to stop the dictator regime from doing this again and again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Yahya, and congratulations to all of this evening's winners and nominees. I'd like to also thank Waad, but I'd like to speak a little bit about what she said. I didn't know she was going to talk about the accreditation or crediting local journalists, but I would like to try to amplify it. And if you'll forgive the indulgence, I recall 12 years ago, once speaking publicly, I had been a cameraman, and I remember saying that I'd been shot more times than I'd been credited by the BBC. So and how the freelance blood was being spilt in the margins in our trade. And so it's a bit depressing to see, still today, people who've done incredible work not receiving the credit for it. Because we all know that that credit helps them to continue their work. We all know that journalism is served by recognizing people who do good work. That's why we're here tonight. So I am hoping that perhaps we can, with all the incredible people in this room, perhaps we can remember that, and perhaps we can do what we can to ensure that people get the credit they deserve. Okay, I've had my little rant. She couldn't have said that in the more appropriate club, I think, but anyway, there we go. And of course, I'd like to thank Elizabeth for hosting us so brilliantly this evening. Thank you so much. And to our most distinguished judges for giving up their time and delivering their expertise. There they all are. And we're incredibly blessed by them. And finally, to all of you for being here tonight. And the bar is open, hopefully, and we can have a bit of a piss up, hopefully. Thank you.